Welcome to the Iowa Ag Podcast. I'm David Geiger, your host here at the Jethro's Barbecue Studio, and it is right before Thanksgiving, so we're going to have a conversation here on the Iowa Ag Podcast about some of the turkey opportunities and producers that are in the state of Iowa. And to do so, we have with us folks from the Iowa Turkey Federation here. Gretta Irwin is the executive director. Gretta, thank you so much for joining us here.
Hello, thanks for having us on.
And then also we have Sheila Larson, the vice president of communications over there. Also a farmer. Sheila, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Now, we are here because you guys were in the Des Moines area because of a turkey pardon that was just minutes ago, actually. Tell us a little bit about the turkey pardon and go ahead and start, Gretta, on what you experienced there.
Well, this is a long-standing history for the Iowa Turkey Federation. Our president will bring 2 turkeys down for the governor to recognize, to help celebrate the turkey industry. And by doing that, we give the turkey a day pardon of not being on a Thanksgiving table. And it's really a great way to just recognize our industry and the contributions that our farmers make to bring turkey to our tables 365 days out of the year.
And do we know the farms that these 2 turkeys came from?
Yeah, they would have been from up in Sac County, up by Sac City and that area. And the 2 turkeys were raised on Josh Berg with his help as one of our turkey farmers, and he's currently our president. So he and his wife and 3 kids. The kids got out of school today, and yes. I think they were happy to come to Des Moines and not have to be in class today.
Oh, 100%. And the governor was so sweet to them and showed them around, and their faces just were lit up. It was really fun.
Yeah.
It's a great way to connect the rural side of farming and agriculture to the urban side, because that's pretty prominent as we have that Thanksgiving turkey on the table every Thanksgiving, more or less. However, in the state of Iowa, while there are some turkeys that may be presented on the table, that's not really what we produce here in the state of Iowa. Is that correct?
Yeah, we are further processed. So we raise toms in Iowa. So when you think about your Thanksgiving dinner and that full bird on your table, that's a hen. And so here in Iowa, we raise toms, and that gets further processed into deli meat and turkey bacon and all of those other delicious cuts that we can enjoy year round.
Yeah, because if we were going to do the toms on the table, a lot of times when they go to market, they're about 48 pounds live weight. So that would have ended up being over a 30-some pound whole bird. And most consumers aren't looking for that. I love a turkey that big because I love to have leftovers, love leftovers. But for most consumers, that's maybe just a little too big.
I think having the sliced turkey tends to be what we use most of the time, though, as well. I have turkey sandwiches, and I was just reading a cookbook you guys gave me, kielbasa from turkey, and I honestly, to my shame, did not realize that there was a turkey version of kielbasa. It's something my family's eaten forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and it's wonderful, and I love that product. It's lower in fat and sodium than any of the other kielbasas that is carried on the market. So it's just a really wonderful option once you're cooking that up and adding some seasonings. That leanness, I think, just really brings forward that flavor.
And it sounds like you're going to have to bring turkey kielbasa to your next family gathering is what I'm hearing.
I got to double check, make sure that it is that turkey version.
That's right.
Yeah.
As a producer, Sheila, when you look at Thanksgiving, even though you may be producing a different form of turkey, what does it mean to you to have that level of representation of what you produce?
Yeah, it's really special and rewarding because, as every farmer knows, it's a lot of hard work and it's time and commitment. And so to see America as a whole really recognize that and be thankful that they have that protein available to them, it just is a special place in our hearts because you just don't get that. Not every protein gets that, right?
Right.
So,
you might have like a bacon fest or something,
right.
But very few situations where you're going to celebrate the whole hog.
Right.
Being there on the table.
Well, like I said, there's not a pork day or a beef day, but there's a turkey day.
Right.
Yes. And we really relish that opportunity we have to be that center of the plate and just to recognize the contributions farmers make to put all that food on our table. And I think as we're seeing by the prices and what specials are being offered in the store, this is a reasonable meal price-wise to put on the table for our friends and family.
I think that, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a great way to connect that rural America to urban America. And when you do so with turkey, it allows you to highlight the successes and the challenges that exist within the industry. And I think of one of the recent successes, which kind of shocked me because I recall seeing Iowa's, I think it was number 9 or number 11 in the nation for turkey production, but now we're number 7.
Yeah, we are. We're number 7 in turkey production and 5th in processing. So that means between our processing plants, we're bringing in turkeys from our neighboring states and are processing them here in Iowa. So really great value added when you think about we're taking that corn and soybeans that are being raised in our rural counties and going through our rural elevators. That's what's being fed to the turkeys. Then we are processing those turkeys in Iowa as well. So truly that value added agriculture that we're really looking for, especially in rural Iowa.
What has contributed to that growth here in the state?
I think it's that dedication of our workforce and the structure that we do have in Iowa. We have the corn, we have the soybeans, and as those prices have fluctuated so much over the last few years, if you had to add shipping on top of it, so putting it on a train and railing out to another state, that really adds to your cost of production. And when you can keep the turkeys near that source of the corn and soybeans, and that processing structure is already here in Iowa, that really creates that wonderful structure that we have to be value added.
Sheila, Gretta mentioned that we have that wonderful feed structure in the state of Iowa to give opportunities to turkey producers. And I know Iowa is the number 1 egg producer in the nation as well. What is a barrier or a challenge that would stop Iowa from being the number 1 turkey producer?
Well, it takes land and space and the processing plants to be able to put that much poundage through all the plants. But we also face some disease issues. I'm sure everyone knows what highly pathogenic avian influenza is. So that's nothing new to your audience. But we've also faced avian metapneumovirus. And so even though we might place 200,000 turkeys on our farm, that many aren't going to market because we do have disease issues. So that definitely plays a role, but other states are facing that as well, not just Iowa.
I'm glad you brought that up because I mentioned both successes and challenges within the industry that we can highlight on a level you normally can't because of Thanksgiving and turkeys just being a topic of discussion. When you look at both of those viruses, both of those diseases, they have absolutely devastated producers. And in many cases, there is not the support like in other conventional types of farming or agriculture that are provided for producers like turkey producers. How have you guys overcome or pushed through or fought through these waves of disease that really you have no control over other than your own barn?
Yeah. Greta and I were having a conversation about how the industry really worked together to share the story and to get approval for importing a vaccine for avian metapneumovirus. I mean, that was a huge impact of the entire industry, each sharing their story and how it impacted them. But I think just the farmer in general having that optimistic attitude and fighting through it, because it's not easy when you're losing birds and you have a challenge that there's not a lot you can do for, right? We know high path AI comes from wild animals and geese and, there's conversations, is it airborne? Well, there's not a lot I can do to fight it if it's in the air or if it's in flies. If
it's in feed.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's just a challenge that you face, but you keep pushing through it. And I think each day we find new information and there's research going on. And so you just keep pushing through as you get more information.
And farmers, as a lot of people know, are such optimistic people. I mean, they are farmers because they really do want to feed people and they enjoy that interaction with the land and with their livestock. And so when we face these challenges, they're always like, well, there's tomorrow and it will get better. And I love that about their spirit. But the government has been wonderful in finally approving a vaccine for avian metapneumovirus. It took us a year to get that approval, which in government speed was really fast.
That's extremely fast.
It was extremely fast. And so we are very, very thankful to those folks up in Ames at the National Center for Veterinary Biologics to speed that process along and to get that vaccine approved. That has been helpful in the process. process. But in the meantime, high path AI is really popping up in areas we haven't seen for a while, more in that Indiana area, North Carolina. We have now seen it hit some of our genetic stock. So the birds that are laying the eggs and the toms that are providing the seed stock for us to continue to raise. So I think it's going to be a very challenging next couple of years, just because what is that supply chain going to look like for getting poults, the baby turkeys, and how do we continue to grow the industry depends on having more birds. And then the other end of it, it depends on having consumers buying the product. And with the downturn of product in the stores because of high path AI and avian metapneumovirus, the product just isn't in the store like it used to be. And so we're really facing challenges on both ends of this spectrum. And the biggest thing that we can get from our consumers and our supporters is to keep hunting out turkey and keep buying turkey and hang with us through this process, because I think the next year or two is going to take some time to get the industry rebuilt up. But we're optimistic and just can't wait to keep providing this great protein.
As a quick tangent, before I ask a question about the avian metapneumovirus, for folks not involved in the turkey industry, how long does it take to kind of recover or reproduce? I know, for example, with cattle, it's very difficult to rebuild the herd because it has such a long gestational period and a long growth period to maturity. But what is that turkey range?
I mean, in
like?
a breeder flock, it's going to be longer. So we were actually hit with high path AI in March of 22, and it was March 28th. I remember the day very clearly, and we restocked on May 18th. But we moved very quickly. Like they said you could start at midnight. We started at midnight.
But that's like still 2 months of no income.
Right. Yep.
That's pretty
and
crazy.
then even when you restock, right, turkeys are in the barn for 18 to 20 weeks. And so even when you replace in May, you're not bringing income in May.
Right.
That's coming 20 weeks later.
Right.
And in the meantime, the poults are costing you, what now is it, $7 a poult?
Close to $7.
And then the feed for that poult through that life cycle, there's a lot of money that you have invested before you go to the market.
100%.
Yes. And that's all on you as a farmer to take that risk. And if that bird doesn't make it to market,
then you're out.
You and your banker are having a conversation.
Yes.
And that's going back is one of the huge reasons why when you have to depopulate, when you have to restock like that, it's so devastating, because there are very few programs that help you recover or get some sort of insurance for those types of situations.
Yeah, there's not insurance you can get for disease in turkeys. It just doesn't exist.
Nope. And so if you have high path AI, the government comes in and takes your livestock because it's a foreign animal disease. So there is some compensation there, but like Sheila said, it kind of takes care of that flock, and then you still have a bigger hole after that flock. So it helps. With avian metapneumovirus, there really wasn't a program in place. Some of my farmers did find some funding through one USDA program, but it required that they had to take that to litigation through the court system within USDA in order to get the payment. So they had to fight tooth and nail to get some support back to help them get through this avian metapneumovirus. And for some of my farmers, they said this was over $1 million that it cost my family farm.
Yep.
It's a hard hole to get out of when that happens if there is no government support or some programs to help farmers when you are raising livestock. And it's just not there. And so farmers take all that brunt on their shoulders. And so it's just kind of another reason to just say, thank you, farmers, for doing what you do and the stress you go through just to provide us with this great protein.
Going to avian metapneumovirus, I know with highly pathogenic avian influenza that we've seen a few waves over the last 5 to 10 years. They are full depopulation. You get it in your barn, all the animals need to be depopulated, which in layman's terms means they have to be put down.
Yep.
When it comes to the avian metapneumovirus, is it the same process? If that appears, is it full depopulation, or is it just some of the animals get sick?
It's the animals get sick. So it really depends on the farm and the flock. Some people they've lost up to 60, 70% of their flock from a virus.
Wow.
and others, maybe 20%, which, by the way, 20% still not good.
That's just imagine if you're not in farming, you walk into work one day and they're like, oh, we're giving you a 20% pay cut.
Right. Yeah, that's a great comparison. I mean, right? Most people would be like, excuse me?
Excuse me.
I'm looking for a new job at this point.
That day they're looking up new jobs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, before, now we have a vaccine, but before, for that year that we were waiting for that approval, there wasn't really anything you could do, right? You help work with your vet so you can maybe give them some medicine and treat their symptoms, but it's a virus. So it's not going to make it go away, right? Just like in a human, if I have a virus, if I have the flu virus, nothing they give me is going to make that go away. So you can't solve the problem. Is that the right way of terming it, I guess?
Well, there's no silver bullet or quick and easy answer.
Right.
Because what rates do this vaccine help turkeys?
I would say there's been a high variance. Mm-hmm. And especially going into the winter months, then we see maybe not as positive results. And the reason for that is because it's cold. And so we have to, we shut up the barns a little bit more. Obviously, you're still ventilating on all of those things. Yep. But your ventilation is different in the winter because of temperatures. And so then when you're in a building, just like us as humans, if we're all in a room, right, and one of us is sick, the likelihood of another one getting sick has a higher probability. Mm-hmm.
Because it goes more than just saving the birds as well. Because the issue with viruses like this is it may not kill them, but it does severely impact the feed, which you have to buy, takes to feed them, essentially to get to market rates and market weights. And that is also a negative upon it. So we're not just only talking about birds get this, they might die, but also birds get this, the vaccine reduces the amount of damage that the virus does while they recover.
Right. Well, and it's, if you don't feel good, you're not going to eat as much.
Right.
And so the turkey is probably not going to eat as much, which means he doesn't get to the weight that he otherwise would be at.
Mm-hmm. A comment on biosecurity, because that has been a big push and big part of counteracting these viruses that have been brought in, I believe, mainly by wild birds for the most part. There's a couple other potential options or reasons, but things you really don't have control over. The only way you could do it was shut down your barn and protect your flock by in and out showering and a variety of other measures that are done by biosecurity. What has been, as a producer, Sheila, what has been a huge challenge there? And then, Gretta, if you could jump in, industry-wide challenge as you approach that topic.
I think we always say keep what's inside the barn in and what's outside the barn out. And so anything we can think of that helps us accomplish that is what we strive to do. But as I said, there's flies that carry disease. Well, can you keep flies out of your house?
And they're birds too. So if you did put something on the sides and killed the bugs, if they got in at all and died, the birds would probably eat them.
Right. Exactly. And we personally put up lasers on our barn, which basically scares away geese, ducks, those types of birds, to try to help us manage wildlife. But we also utilize wildlife services through USDA program, which is great. But it's just like you said, the challenge of any new thing you can think of that would maybe help you. And just knowing that you can give it your all, you can give 110%, and that doesn't mean you're not going to get one of these viruses.
And industry-wide, Gretta?
Well, and I think that's really the frustration for farmers. They are trying so hard to not get this virus. And I talked to some of my members, and they're like, the stress that it is if you get the virus, the sadness that happens. No one likes to go through that process of having to depopulate a whole barn of birds. It is an awful feeling, and I've heard grown men are crying because it's just so emotional and is not the purpose of raising these birds. And so no one wants to go through this. No one wants to have that happen on their farm. So they're doing everything they can to make this not happen. And then it still happens at times. And that is so frustrating for the farmers because they're like, we are doing everything we can think of. We are being audited by USDA. If you're selling to a processing plant, they come out and audit you as well. There is all these checks and balances in place. We're doing training every year with our farmers on biosecurity. We have speakers on biosecurity. They're trained and it's drilled in their head as strong as it can be, and it still can happen because you can't control viruses, as we all know. We all try to do our precautions, and at the flu season or when during COVID or whatever, and you do everything you can, and sometimes it still happens. So, I think nationwide we continue to try to figure out what is the right next step. What would a possible vaccine look like if we were to use a vaccine for high-path AI? A lot of the industry feels it would be great to start in our breeders, start with that seed stock and make sure that that is protected and then go from there. But lots and lots of considerations to take into place for all of these conversations. But I think farmers are just looking for something that can help alleviate the stress.
Well, and I think for consumers, the people that aren't dealing with this, like us turkey farmers and in the turkey industry, what's interesting is when you talk about a virus load, if there's more virus load, then the likelihood of flocks being impacted is greater, right? Because there's more virus in the air.
Right. And I think that's monitored a lot of times through USDA and the government, that they can tell that there's this many parts per million or however. But that virus load is something we look at of like how much is in the wild birds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just learned that they were saying there's in all 4 major flyways, they're saying there is a large virus load.
Right. Unprecedented to what they've seen in the past. So that means it's circulating in the wild birds. Those wild birds fly over our barns, and it somehow then transfers from the ground and into the barn. So it's hard to fight nature.
Yes, it is.
It's very hard.
Right. And because I was just thinking, you mentioned lasers. I'm like, well, lasers for geese might also stop other birds, which are great at stopping insects or taking care of insect problems, which means the insects have a better chance of getting in. So you solved one problem, and now there's another problem that you have to solve.
Yep.
And it just never ends.
Life on the farm, right?
Yeah. It is life on the farm. It's very true. Very, very true.
I want to wrap all this up because you mentioned, Gretta, it's a good time to be thankful for the farmer. And this is a time of Thanksgiving. That's the actual name of what we get to celebrate. And I want to just first talk about what you are thankful for this year and what you are thankful for when it comes to being able to be a part of the system and being able to celebrate holiday like Thanksgiving, even if this episode will air a couple days after Thanksgiving.
Oh, right. Well, I'm thankful every day, but like you said, Thanksgiving is just a great time for us to all pause and reflect on the structure of a society that we have in the United States. And we have free trade amongst ourselves. We have food supplies. We have food on our shelves. And a lot of countries just don't have that ability. And I'm thankful that our farmers work that hard to make sure we have food available all year long for us. And it's great to walk in a grocery store and there's product on the shelf. The price may fluctuate, but there is product there and we have options. And that's a great blessing.
And it's good to be thankful for on the urban side, because the turkey also has a pretty big impact on the Iowa economy as well.
It does. I mean, about $30 of economic activity happens with every turkey we raise in Iowa, and we're raising a little over 15 million turkeys. So, it does have an impact. And as I mentioned earlier, that is in the rural communities. That's in Sac County. That's in Washington County, and those counties that are definitely more of on a rural basis. And that's a great thing to be bringing into our rural areas.
Sheila, same question. What are you thankful for being a part of the turkey industry, being a producer, and what do you look at when you think of this time of Thanksgiving?
I'm really thankful for the industry as a whole, because I think it's a pretty special industry. The work that everyone does together and just how supportive everyone is. You can have 2 processing plants that are, technically competitors. But if anything happens and the one needs something, the other one jumps in immediately. I mean, no questions asked, right? And so I think it's just that support that everyone in the industry gives to one another is pretty amazing and special.
Well, we have our convention coming up here in December, and we talk a lot about our turkey family getting together, and it does have that sense. Whether you're in the genetics business, whether you're in the feed business, in the healthcare business, processing, or a farmer, everyone's talking, everyone's coming together over a nice cold drink and having conversations and answering questions and solving problems. And that's really what it takes, is everybody working together. And Sheila and I both are always thankful that we have a family that likes each other and gets along and helps each other out. So we really do appreciate our Iowa industry.
And being involved in that and trying to be a part of the larger community, help out folks know more about turkey production. You guys do have your own podcast as well that you do and produce for turkey producers specifically to help them have more information. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have the Turkey Talk Show, and we bring in experts to talk about high path AI and biosecurity and anything else that's going on in the industry that can help them. And it's great because you can have someone that's in DC and it's being heard overseas. It's being in Europe or in Canada. Or, right here in the Midwest.
But this was your idea, Sheila, as a turkey farm wife.
Yes.
You thought, we need a podcast, right?
Yeah. It was one of those, I was on the farm and I knew where to find the information, and I knew that Iowa Turkey Federation was putting that out. But the time I had to actually sit down and look for that information and get in my emails, it just never happened. And so when I came to the Federation, I said, hey, I really want to start a podcast because they can listen to it when they're in the barn or in the tractor. And I'm lucky that Gretta and the board said, yeah, let's go for it. Do what you got to do.
We kind of jumped out of an airplane is what we felt like we were doing without a parachute for a really, really long time. But a year later, it's a lot of fun.
And where could folks find that if it happened to be a producer who didn't know about your podcast, heard about it here?
Yeah, so we have an app. It's called Turkey Connect, and it's on that, and then also on Simplecast.
We have with us Sheila Larson, the Vice President of Communications with the Iowa Turkey Federation, and we also have the Executive Director of the Iowa Turkey Federation, Gretta Irwin, with us on the Iowa Ag Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, you two.
Well, thanks, and we love talking turkey.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
I am your host, David Geiger. This is the Iowa Ag Podcast here at the Jethro's Barbecue Studio. Feel free to check out some of the other work I do. I have a podcast called Farm Here Daily. I do most Mondays through Fridays. You can check that out at fieldforwardmedia.com or on Spotify, iTunes, all the works for podcasts. And I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And since this podcast will be airing a little bit after Thanksgiving, I hope you also had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Until next time.